So we're doing something a little different today. We're doing talk show format because we're talking about the power of a testimony. The power of a testimony. And I just know this. There's no greater witnessing tool that you have than what God has done in your life. I mean, sometimes you can say, well, let me tell you what happened in so and so's life and how they were like this and now they're like this. That's great. But more powerful, there's no more powerful story than your own story.
Yeah.
You need to know how to tell your own story as well, which oftentimes takes a moment of writing down your own story. And like I was born here, not so far back like that, but you get the picture of how you came to Christ, what was going on in your life, and the story of your conversion, what was happening and what God's doing now. So in the book of John, chapter number 4, there's a story where Jesus and the disciples are in Jerusalem, and it says that they were on their way to the Sea of Galilee. If you were to look at the Bible map, you would see that Jerusalem is about 2,600 feet above sea level. And down to which is closer to go to the Dead Sea, down to the Dead Sea is like 1,700, I think it is 1,600 feet, 1,400 feet below sea level. And also the same with over to the Sea of Galilee. So one's one way and one's the other way. And so when oftentimes the Bible will say they were going up to Jerusalem, they were actually walking uphill to Jerusalem. And if they were saying they were going down to Galilee, they were actually walking downhill to Galilee. Galilee is also under sea level. I don't remember exactly how many, 700 feet or something like that, below sea level to the Sea of Galilee, which is a lake that flows through the Jordan River down to the Dead Sea, which nothing goes out of the Dead Sea. It's so low. And so Jesus, his disciples, they were going to Galilee, which means they had to go through the territory of Samaria. And going through the territory of Samaria, Jesus has an on-purpose conversation with a person. So a lot of times, your testimonies are going to happen on your way somewhere else. On your way somewhere else, and you encounter somebody, and there's just a moment that feels like a God moment. You know, how many of you know what I'm talking about, what a God moment, right? Yeah. So that's the scene right here. Jesus says to his disciples in John 4, I'm going to sit down at this well, and you guys go get some food and some supplies in town. So the disciples, they went into a town, a Samaritan town. It was a people group that the Jewish people despised. Their religion was very mixed up and backwards, and the Jewish people considered the Samaritans to be just wrong, just heathen, just bad people. And so the disciples go into town, and Jesus sits down at a well, and a lady comes along, a Samaritan lady. And Jesus starts having a conversation with her. And it was one of those kinds of things where she says, why are you even talking to me? You know I'm a Samaritan woman. There's nobody else here, just you and I, and you're even engaging me in a conversation. And Jesus says, well, I would like for you to give me something to drink. Would you let me use your bucket, get a drink from the well? And she's saying, how would you drink from my bucket? I mean, this is crazy that you would even talk to me, because most people in that situation, most Jewish people in that situation, they would be like, I'll die of thirst before I'll ask a Samaritan for a drink. That was their attitude, their prejudice. Jesus sits down and says, excuse me, ma'am, would you give me a drink from the well? She's like, you're talking to me? You are talking to me? She doesn't even know it's Jesus at this point, right? So she starts this conversation like, how are you even going to ask me for a drink? He said, if you knew who I was, you would ask me for a drink. If you only knew who I am, Jesus said, you would ask me, and I would give you living water that you would never thirst again. And of course, she has no idea what he's talking about, but she can see that he's like a prophet, right? In her mind, he's like a prophet. So then she says, yeah, I would like this living water. Give me this living water. That'd be great. And he said to her, go get your husband. Come back and talk to me about it. And she said, oh, sir, I'm not married. And Jesus drops a bomb right in the middle of the conversation. He goes, oh, yeah, I know you're not married, but you've been married 5 times and you're living with somebody that's not your husband right now. Seriously, just dropped a bomb right in the middle of that conversation. She goes, oh, sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Right? It's like, because he just read her mail, right? He just told her what was up, you know. And so the scripture describes it. Basically, he told her what was going on in her life. She goes into the town and tells everybody in the town, the same town where the disciples were at, and told nobody. You do realize that even preachers can be prejudiced? I apologize for all of them. When I say all of them right now, I'm talking about Chris right here specifically, but
I'm sorry.
All of them. All of them that have ever acted prejudiced towards you or anybody else, it's wrong, and it was wrong for the disciples. They went into this town. They didn't see anybody. They didn't see any results. They didn't do anything. And here Jesus is sitting out at this well and just talking to a person, and his testimony affected the whole town. So let me tell you what the Word of God says in John chapter 4, verse number 39. Verse 39, it says this: many of the Samaritans believed in Jesus because the woman said, he told me everything I ever did. And then it says, when they came out to see him, they begged him to stay in their village. So Jesus stayed in that Samaritan town, Smyrna is what it was called, in that Samaritan town for two more days. He stayed in a foreign place, a place where they would normally not stay. They would travel through because they had to. And it says this: he stayed there 2 more days, long enough for many more to hear his message and believe. Then they said to this same woman, these people said to this same woman, now we believe, not just because of what you told us, not just because of your testimony, but because we have heard him ourselves. Now we know that he is indeed the Savior of the world. So understand this: your testimony will reveal God to other people. That's why today we wanted to stop and share some stories with you and encourage you to be able to share your story with other people so you understand the power of a testimony, the power of what God has done in your life. And you know what? People don't know it unless you tell them. This lady, this woman at the well, had gone back to her town and told her town what Jesus had told her. He told me everything I've ever done. He knew all of my secrets. He knew all that. They came and listened to Jesus and heard it for themselves and decided to follow Jesus for themselves. And after all, isn't that our goal, to take more people to heaven with us? Yeah, that's our goal. So today we want to share some stories with you. I asked Pastor Chris to lead us in this discussion, and we got some great people to interview today.
So as Holly told you guys earlier, we had an incredible group 16 that just returned from a missions trip in Hot Springs, Arkansas at Compact. And they were able to minister to people that we probably wouldn't come in contact with every day at the grocery store. This is kind of like going on a missions trip, but they got to do it domestically without having to do some international travel. So it opened up the ability for a lot of people to take that chance on their first missions trip and to also go outside the four walls, because this isn't just the church. The church is us being outside there too, right?
Right.
So we decided this morning we would bring up a sampling. This is obviously not the whole team, but we brought Heather and Carissa and their fearless leader on this trip, Miss Chelsea, to be up here with us. And I just wanted you guys to know that they've been impacted by what they went through. And I think it's really cool when we get to see the real life, especially in this case, right after it happened, impact that something like this can have. So Heather, I wanted you to kind of kick us off in discussion today and tell us about, what your experience was like at Compact on this trip. Maybe something that you felt like really stood out to you and what God was able to do through you and to you on this trip.
Okay. I had to make some bullet points so I wouldn't ramble. When the trips were scheduled for this year, we have 3 mission trips, obviously. The first one came up and immediately I said, I'm going. And I did that to be proactive ahead of the doubt, because the doubt creeps in immediately when you see these dates, the places we go, the cost, the doubts creep in immediately. So I said, yes, God will handle the rest. We are busy. I'm a busy mom. I have a busy family. Stepping away for 6 days is huge. But I relied on God to make sure my family was taken care of, to make sure I had friends step in and people to take care of everything here at home so that I could focus to be there. So that was the first thing, because doubt creeps in real quick. Even after you say yes, it's like, oh, well, there's something this date, and I can't be away from this. There's a baseball game and all the things. But the devil doesn't want us to take mission trips. Yeah. He does not want us to do the Lord's work. So he is trying to stop you every step of the way, even days before our trip, the day of our trip. He doesn't want us to serve. And it's because he doesn't want us to use our giftings for God's kingdom. Yeah. And he doesn't want us to experience the giftings of all of the people that we're along with. I went to, where did we go last year? Ecuador last year, which was incredible. But this trip, I really took the time to be intentional about recognizing the giftings of the people that we live and do life with. And that really just was incredible. And I keep thinking about it because we all have giftings. We feel like we don't have anything to offer for these types of trips. Like we did a lot of gardening and landscaping. I'm not gifted in that area at all. But I feel like God used me in ways in spite of that. The other thing I wanted to share was we met with the executive director of Compact. I did no research ahead of time because I like to go in and experience it for myself, learn for myself from the staff. And so going to Compact, and I think I speak for most of the group, our perspective on foster care was wrong. And the executive director we met with enlightened us on what Compact does for foster children and families. And he said something that has stuck with me, and I want to have it on a shirt. He said, there's nothing like the church when the church is being the church. And that particularly in the foster care community, the goal is to reunify and redeem families. And that was huge for me to think about it in that from that perspective, because we often think about foster kids and how they're better with the family they're with, or I can make their life better and I can provide better. But that's not the case. We're there for them for a season, and we're there for their families to help redeem them and unite them again. And we're there for foster families, and that's what Compact does. And there's so many layers of things that they do in Arkansas, and now they're branching out into other states. And I'm so excited for that. And I'm excited for them to come to Texas so I can figure out how I can be involved. I immediately I want to foster kids and I want to be a part of that. I don't know if that's my path, but I know that I want to do something. It really opened my eyes to what the crisis is in our country. I think the last thing was really just experiencing it for myself, we go to pour out into to others and to serve that community and to serve those children and the staff members. But you come out of a missions trip filled and you're poured into and you're so blessed by everybody else. And you feel like it's a sacrifice to go because you're away from your life and your family. But when you come home, you are so filled up and so encouraged and ready to go the next time. And I wish we could have stayed longer, I think, because I'm like, it was short.
So you guys had to travel outside of the United States of Texas into Arkansas.
Yes.
The Republic of Arkansas.
The Republic of
That's what it's
Arkansas.
called, yeah.
I'd never been.
Across the border, and it was very different. Understand that, but beautiful in Hot
Yeah.
Springs, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And tell them about the facility that was there. I'll do that.
The campus blew my mind. I expected to drive up, there'd be a building, and, you know, we serve there. It's a 15-acre campus, I think.
54.
50. Oh, wow. I don't know. Acreage. 54 acreage campus that was started by one lady. She was a pastor back in the like 1940s, and she saw the need for foster care and in the foster community. And so she started this place, and now it's grown over all of these years into a campus that houses children with special needs, teenagers that need kind of an in-between place, children that haven't quite found the right foster home for them. And so there's cottages where these families are housed and house parents that leave their life and come and live with these foster children and love them and encourage them and pour into them and teach them about God. And
That's great.
Yeah, the campus was amazing, and we worked really hard those days.
Yeah.
It was really hard work, and it's not my kind of work. But every day we were joyful and happy to literally plant these seeds that now the community gets to witness and the family gets to be proud of their campus.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
amazing.
awesome.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Now, Carissa, we had talked briefly before. I know that there are multiple emotions leading up to going on a trip like this that can overwhelm you. You can get nervous, like, oh, I'm not going to make the cost of the trip, or like, oh, I'm going to miss out on a big event if I go. And sometimes we're excited and gung-ho. Sometimes we're, I'm not sure if this is for me. Talk us through that. What were your emotions like heading into this trip?
Well, honestly, I was actually ashamed to admit that I was very disconnected. I felt like I even told Stephen, we're not going on a missions trip this year. And it wasn't that I don't love it. I absolutely loved going to Ecuador. It was just like, you know, we had all these things going on. And, you know, and then like my family scheduled a trip at the same time as this. So I was like, okay, see, well, I'm not going. But I just kind of felt that like God was whispering, and I was like, but I can't, Lord, see, like I can't miss my family reunion. But then he moved that out of the way, and my mom went to Japan on her dream trip. So they moved the family trip to the next month, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And I honestly, I will say that I even told Stephen, I'm not sure why I'm going. But God opened the door, I'm going to say yes. And then it became about Ethan going on his first missions trip.
Yeah.
And so that's what it was. This isn't for me. This is for Ethan. And he had an incredible experience. So I'm so glad he went. But I had no idea what God was going to do for me through this trip. It wasn't about me, but he was like, wait, hold on, I have something for you. And I would have missed, honestly, a revelation, like a new purpose in my life, and I can't imagine not being there for that.
Yeah. So if anybody in the room has an upcoming family reunion, they should expect God to move that so they can go on a missions trip. I'm liking that idea a lot.
You know, if he wants you there, he's going to make it happen. And all we have to do is be obedient and recognize that, okay, he's opening this door. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go. That's really all it takes. We don't have to be super spiritual or like pastors or know the Bible front and back. We just have to say yes. That's all we have to do.
That's great.
And you guys have said something that blew me away when we've talked before about this. Your concept of what it meant to foster. And our role in helping the foster is actually wildly different than
Right.
the assumptions you had going in.
Yeah.
You need to share that with, I think from the outside looking in, often we can see maybe that we're like demonizing the foster parents, like, oh,
Yeah.
they must have messed up. So it's my job to come in here and bum, 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 bum. I will be a better parent, love them more, be better. That's not it. That's not what this is about.
It's
So
so
can
wrong.
you kind of explain that?
Yeah, and like to back up a little bit, I'm gonna not pick on Elijah, but he's a very loving friend and he's a very honest friend, and he knows my fear. Like for anyone who doesn't know, my husband and I have lost a child, our youngest son, when he was almost 5, and someone spoke into our lives that they thought fostering would be a part of our lives. But there was this huge fear that I had of this child like coming into our home and me loving this child, and then someone out of the woodworks coming along and then going back to that family member, because like in my mind they were villains, like they didn't deserve their child.
Yeah.
But yet my heart was going to be ripped out when they went back. And Elijah very lovingly and honestly said, your viewpoint on fosterhood is wrong. You're incorrect if you're coming from it from that standpoint. And I didn't quite get it. I was like, yeah, I know, Elijah, but I still have this fear that I couldn't let go of. And going into this trip, and there was an opportunity, like you wouldn't think you would get to build a dollhouse on a missions trip, right? But they needed this dollhouse built for this little girl who'd been waiting for weeks. It had been sitting in the office and she was expecting it. And during that experience, the director came in and spoke with us just kind of on a whim. And it was me, Trina, and Shannon got to interact with him, and my mind was blown. Like my whole world was changed. He talked about how this is a mission field. Like 80% of these kids are not coming from families they're being abused, or their parents are villains and monsters. The parents just need a little extra help to get things on track so that they can get their child back. And I was like, wait, but my broken heart. And in hearing him speak, God told me, he was like, well, what about their broken heart? These aren't monsters. These are people who love their kids. And I was just like, whoa, I never thought about their broken heart.
Yeah.
And so their mission is to restore these families. And I was like, I can be a part of saving these parents from experiencing the broken heart that I know how that feels. I was like, I've been praying and searching for a purpose for our son's, his death, and like how it can be used for God's kingdom. He's done amazing things in our lives, but what can I do with it to serve God? And I can do something. I can be a part of, whether it's bringing a child into our home or temporarily and just loving on them and ministering to the mom who's trying to get her child back, or working with the agencies. However God does it, I'm open, and I want to spare those parents from experiencing the broken heart. And that was just like, wow. Like I never would have had that perspective change had I not just said yes and went. Like,
Let me go ahead and like set the table for like what I feel like this theme has been. The entirety of the Bible has one common thread, and it is God's redemptive purpose to go after us, even to the point of, I'm going to give up my own son because I need you to be redeemed to me so bad.
yeah,
The purpose that we play with helping these foster kids is a story of redemption for these families.
Yeah.
We want these babies to be back with their moms and dads, and I can promise you, those babies want to be with their parents.
yes,
And our job isn't to come in and love them better and show them what they should have had. It's to help restore God's perfect plan of the family unit for that child. And I
yes.
think that, to me, when y'all spoke that, it's the first thing that jumped out. This is
Yeah.
it's the ministry of restoration.
Yeah. Well, and going back to the quote from the director, the same director that they met with, he said, there's nothing like the church when the church is being the church. And he said, this is the church's job. This
That's
is not
good, yeah.
the state's job, the government's job. This is the church's job to work with these children and work with these families and support them and be their village. And he said, if anything else, you spread that word when you come back and find foster families that are in your community. Find a biological family that's working through trying to get their children back and support them, rally around them, have them be part of the church, because that's where they're going to find all of the tools and resources to build their family back up.
Yeah. And I'll share a story on that he shared with us when we were speaking with him. He was talking about a couple that took in a foster child with this mindset of redeeming the family, and they kept in contact with the mom. Obviously, you do that, but they were ministering to her and like helping her. Like their goal was to get her child back, not to take her child away. And there was the Mother's Day came along, and they felt compelled to invite her to church. She wasn't someone who really knew about God, like beyond what they were trying to help, like minister to her, but they knew that she needed to be there, so they invited her. So the pastor, he talked about looking out and seeing the foster dad and mom and the child and the biological mom. And during that service, at the very end, she walked up and she gave her heart to the Lord. And then that church surrounded her. They became her community. And now she's not a lost mom struggling who doesn't have her child. She's a redeemed family who now has a community. And by the end of the church, the service, they were like, what do you need to get your child back? And she was like, I need a refrigerator. It needs to have food in it. I need my lights turned on. Someone went and paid her light bill for several months. Someone brought her a refrigerator and stocked it full of food. This is an amazing redemption story, and that's what God is all about. And
that's the church being the church.
Yeah.
That's awesome. With all this craziness of the election coming up, please understand, it's not our job to vote in the answers. The church is supposed to be the answer. I'm not supposed to vote in the right guy to put someone on a program for the rest of their life. I'm supposed to step up as the church and say, what can I do to love on these babies?
There's a scripture you may or may not have ever heard of in James chapter number 1, verse 27. It says, religion that God our Father accepts is pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by this world. So pure religion that the Lord accepts is to look after people that can't look after themselves.
Yes.
To care for them and to keep ourselves cared for as well.
Yeah. Well, we've got so much more to go to. I'm thrilled that we got to speak with both Carissa and Heather. Can y'all give them a hand this morning as they leave? And we are going to invite the fearless leader of this troop, Miss Chelsea, to sit in the hot seat this morning. That was her husband, by the way, that gave her a wolf howl from an old cartoon. Ow! I heard that, Ryan. So Chelsea got the opportunity this trip to not only go, but to lead her first missions trip. And Chelsea, for those that may not be super familiar with you, can you kind of give them a synopsis of your Northwood story, like how you guys came here and what your background was really like before?
A lot of bugging. That's how it happened. No, I'm just kidding. So my name is Chelsea. I am the Forge Young Adults Director alongside with my husband. We've been here, I think, almost 3 years, 3 or 4. And it's been great. But the way that we came here is we left a church a couple years ago, very hurt and broken. And, we had gone to the pastor and said, that we had a heart for missions. It had been confirmed in one night of our youth service after I think we just got back from World Mandate. And we were in ministry with the Woods at that time underneath them. And, God gave me a vision during worship that I would one day get to go on a mission trip to Russia. And it was just crazy how it all happened. And, we presented the idea to the pastor at the time and we were denied, and we were very hurt by that. We love them. We would support them unconditionally, of course, but the season that Ryan and I were in as, husband and wife, we wanted more. We had been poured into, we had been loved on, we had gotten to serve, we had, done homeless shelter serving and other things, but we knew that God was calling us to more. And so, we left that church and we got many, many invites from Holly and Preston, come try Northwood. But with the hurt and just daily life, I think we got to a point to where we were like, no, we're going to be adults and we're going to figure it out by myself, right? Like, that's the thing that we all want. Like, I'm going to do it by myself. I got it. It's fine. But it wasn't. We spent, I think, maybe 2.5, if not 3 years out of a church. We would watch random ones online sometimes. Sometimes we would go nowhere. We would use the excuse of, oh, I'm too tired, or, oh, I missed the alarm clock, all the other things that get in the way, or, oh, there's a birthday party, or it's my birthday on a Sunday, or whatever the excuse was, we definitely gave it. But they were persistent, and Ryan and I, one day we were talking like, okay, well, let's just go try Northwood. Let's finally go. They're not gonna stop. And so we came, and it was great. But still in the back of our head, we wanted to do it by ourselves. We wanted to have on our big girl and big boy, underwear. And I don't know if I can say that on church.
You just did. It's
Too late.
It's out there.
Censor that. Somebody censor that, please.
The key is to be honest on this stage, okay? They gave me the seat and the mic, so I'm sorry. But yeah, we came. We really enjoyed it. We had a really great time, and we just wanted to do it on our own. So then again, we went through a phase. We started church hopping a little bit around the area. We are right around the corner from Faith Bridge. Tried it. It was fine. Tried another church. It was fine. But it didn't stick. Like when we walked in, it wasn't like, oh, my God, this is my home church. Like everybody loves me.
I want to thank Elijah and Jennifer for picking out the best theme music for everybody that comes up. So on point. Hi, my friend. Hi. Marlette was able to go on this missions trip with Chelsea and the team. You guys haven't been at the church a really long time, just a year and a half, 2 years? Yeah, you're about a year and a half. And so if you could, just for everybody, kind of give them a little bit of your background with your Northwood story, how y'all came to here.
We were going through a very difficult time in our life as a family. And we're not sharing with anyone else, just us carrying the burden. But the pain was noticeable. And then Trina and Jennifer started praying for us and then invite us as well to Norwood Church, where we found the family that we were looking for. Very warm family.
And we're so glad you're here too.
Yes.
One of the things that Marla had mentioned is that they were going through a difficult time. And we say this all the time. It's okay to be here and just be figuring it out.
Yeah.
You don't have to come and have all the answers. In fact, if you do, there's an exit door right here. I'll be like, here. It's hard to be in a room where people have it all figured out, because I'll be honest with you, I don't, he doesn't. It's a place where God helps us figure it out together. Yeah. And I think part of your story that's so beautiful is you invited us in to where you were at, to love on you where you were at. So tell me about that. You found a home here at Northwood with your family, and you guys really, especially you jumped in and got involved day one. You were trying to run the cafe. You kicked Reese off a security card at one point. It was really wild how excited you got. But tell me, what has God been doing in your family's life this last year?
Oh, well, it's a long list to say, but he answered a bunch of our prayers, because we learn how to pray, really pray with the heart. And well, one of the response God was, because I've been praying for my daughter and my son's spouses from the very little, and now she's engaged with a man of God. So she's
yeah.
You're welcome.
I think one of the things it's beautiful about your family is that you're so visibly able to see God working in your life. And you've shared, with our Bible study on Wednesday nights, even about what God's doing in your life. What would you say to someone that's going through a hard time, but hasn't really let the church love on them like that yet?
Yeah, so as a pastor, I always say, being a family group, build first your family. And when we came here, I was very pushy with my family, hey, we have to go to church. And sometimes they don't want it, but now I'm so proud of everybody is serving. My husband is serving in cameras, my son serving as well, and Holly's serving with the babies. Yeah.
So your husband's back there on the light board. Your son is back there on the streaming video. So the streaming video, we've invested money in that this year, and it's so much better than it ever was before. But that's not a reason for you to stay home and watch, right? Just a better way for you to recommend that, your daughter's involved in multiple ways here. And so I remember one time we were working on the Christmas play, and none of the family was involved in stuff except for you, and we needed a king, and another king. And she said, "Oh, I'll get my husband here. Do you need to ask him?" "No, I'll tell him. You can sign him up to be the king."
Yeah.
And he was really reluctant, because he's this huge robe and the center of attention and all of that stuff. And he was like,
"Thank you, King Mario, for stepping up." Yeah.
That was great. She voluntold him.
She did. She voluntold him, as most loving wives are known to do from time to time. I think it's what's cool about Marlette's story is that she talked about at first it was kind of like they were on drugs. They were drugging to church. You were drugging your family to church. And what stood out to me and my wife is that the first week that Marlette couldn't be here, and we watched the service start, here comes Mario. Without his wife leading him, because he knew he was supposed to be in the house of God. And so to me, that's where I see God not working just with you. God's working with your entire family. And it's awesome to see what he's doing with you guys. It's amazing. Can y'all give Marlette another hand? Well, before we wrap this up, we have one more guest that I'd love to bring up. And you know him, you love him. My gosh, he has lived 20 different lives. I'm telling you, if you think you've done anything in your life that's halfway interesting, just don't tell him. He's done it 10 times over, and he did it while hanging upside down with a shark dangling off his wrist. He is literally Northwood's most interesting man. Can y'all give a hand for Merle Hurd as he comes? I like his entrance music, maybe most of all. I appreciate that. Get down. Well, thanks for joining us this morning, bud. We've been friends for quite a few years here, and I just know from being close with Cindy and Merle, God is actively moving in their lives. And I wanted Merle to be a part of this today because sometimes I think it takes someone else stepping up and saying, man, if you could only know what God's been doing in me, that we need to see so we connect to our own story and go, well, if he can do it for them, he surely can do it in my life too. And so I just appreciate, Merle, you being willing to come up here today. Would you, though, tell us, similar to Chelsea and to Marlette, a little bit about your Northwood story and how you guys kind of came here?
Yeah, this is a hard act to follow. You know that. Yeah. Especially for an old sinner like me. So Cindy and I moved down here in 2011. Yeah. And we went to a couple of churches. And of course, a little bit of background about me, I didn't go to church since I was 6. And ended up meeting Cindy and went and surprised her one day in a full suit, which nobody at church wears a suit anymore. So anyway, I started going to church with her. And then when we moved down here, started at one church, and after a while, we knew one family. And I told her, I said, I'm not going anymore, And of course, for the ones that don't know me, I worked overseas at that time. I was gone 35 days to 90 days and here for 35 days. So I was on and off. But anyway, I don't know, probably Malaysia or Africa. I don't remember where I was. But we were talking and she said, I found a church that I think you'll like. And I said, okay. So when I did get back, she'd gone a few weeks. And my first week, Sunday back, we came to church, which is over here. It's, I think, 13 years ago. And so we went in, and there was, a few people. I mean, we had 50 people maybe, 60 at that church that day. I don't know, 50, 60 people. And I think everybody came over and met me, and introduced themselves. Charles, and Garlene, and, everybody. There used to be some other people that are now passed away and gone. And they made it a loving introduction.
That's awesome.
So we continued and found a home. So
that's really cool. And they all been ever since. And you've actually had a recent stint where you've gotten to be here with us for a longer period of time, which has been nice.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed, having you more consecutively.
Yeah, I've of course, COVID thing hit, overseas ended, went through a few turmoil with job and this and that, and went North Dakota for a while, about died up there with COVID. got to come home from a stint on COVID just in time to make it to Albuquerque for one day as my mother was passing away. I got to see her before she did that night, at least. And but yeah, and we've transitioned. I've spent 2 years in Alaska. Due to circumstances, I've been home since December, still with the company, but anyway, had a knee replacement and different things. But I've at least got to be here, got to at least come to small groups, which I've enjoyed. Went to a very small group with your wife, Trina, which was very good of forgiveness with my background. And
Yeah, it sure seems like God's been doing a lot in you, not just through you, but in you this last few months.
I'm trying. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I've always been skeptic. I'm a show me type person, as you well know.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be here. I always thought it was me, of course, because there wasn't anything I can't do. I used to live a total different life, and there shouldn't be any reason I'm alive. In a few times that I did walk out of, but I shouldn't have. And now I don't believe it might have been me. I always used to think it was me and my skills, but it probably wasn't.
I like that you said, I don't think it might have been me. There's a slim chance, God help.
No.
I'm
just saying that's where I used to think.
That's
and now
fine.
I'm thinking, well, okay. Now I can see a different light. Yes, and I have done a lot, been a lot. I was very fortunate with the way I was raised, going out of the country when I was 6. And I've spent most of my life traveling and working everywhere in the world. And I've been around every religion there is, every situation there is. But I've really enjoyed getting to be here this time. Very much enjoyed the small groups with learn how to forgive. Did it work for me? It's opened my eyes, and I'm looking at things differently. I've really enjoyed small groups on Wednesdays with you. The foundations, like I said, I pipe up and I ask questions,
Yeah, we got a great group that meets every Wednesday night.
We do.
Studying through basically the principles and things that are doctrinal kind of statements for us, things we believe that the Bible teaches, and it's an open discussion kind of class, so it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun,
and if you've never been to one, you're welcome to come to that. It's in our front building up there at 7 p.m. every Wednesday night.
Yeah,
Merle, was there a time where you just said, "Okay, I decided I believe this. I'm going to follow Jesus"?
Like I said, there's been, a few times that I shouldn't be here, that somebody got me out of. I've been told that God wasn't finished with me is the whole reason I'm alive. And I always went with the adage of, well, God watches over little children and fools, but I wasn't a child. So, that's the way
I don't know if y'all understood what he said. He is great at calling it like it is.
But, my feet didn't fit in the little baby shoes. So, but, I think there are a couple things that when my dad passed away, he passed away at home, and we're all in the room, and my mom, she was upset. Everybody was upset, but I mean, my 4-year-old nephew, which is a very intelligent boy, he's a lawyer, environmental lawyer in Washington, D.C., the head of environmental, but at that time he was 4 years of age. We weren't a church family. He wasn't going to church. He hadn't ever been to church. Hadn't been around it. He did read books. He read at that time. But we were sitting there when Dad took his last breaths. Mom was upset. Sorry, just a moment. Anyway, and Michael Sean walked over and just put his hand on her and said, Nana, don't worry. Angels took him. And I sort of, at that time, felt, because nobody told him. How did he know? But he saw it, small children are open to things. Sorry about that. I never had emotions. I truly never had emotions. I never cried. I never felt empathy.
Yeah. So we've talked about that briefly, but you want to talk about God doing something in your life.
Yeah.
He's opened up, I think, your emotions.
Yeah, after my dad passed away, the emotions, I started having emotions, and I don't know if I like them. I used to be able to do anything, it didn't matter, and I never
Can I
changed.
get a witness in the house today? You don't always like their
Don't like
emotions.
their
Right,
emotions.
right,
Look,
right.
look, it's a whole room
Right.
of not emotional over there. No.
And I think a very near, I was going to bring it up Wednesday, but during Father's Day, we've been praying for Miles, my brother.
Yeah.
For you that don't know, he's in hospice. He's a Vietnam vet, Navy SEAL, 4 tours. He's like a brother to me. Anyway, Father's Day, he had a great day. He only has about 1/3 of one lung left from Agent Orange, and he, shot me everything. But anyway, he's a preacher, he's a minister now, and for the last 5 years, he studies everything, every kind of book there is. He had a great day, Father's Day. He went up to his daughter, spent all day with her, came home, called us, and preached, and oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I asked him the question, about the three, the Trinity.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he also prayed and had a great day. He could talk. He spent 45 minutes. Normally, within 5 to 10 minutes, he just can't breathe, So I think God moved in his life. I really do. And gave him that day, because we talked to his wife on her birthday, Wednesday. And she said that the next day he couldn't get out of bed, and he hasn't since. He's not doing well, and he has a very short time.
You got that day with him.
He got that day.
Yeah.
So I think God gave it that to him.
And you said something about the Bible study that you went through with Trina about forgiveness. And
Yeah.
I know one of the things that happens in a church of this size is you'll often have people who feel like, I believe God's real, and I believe God can do it, but God, you don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
Except for me. And they're like the exception to the rule. What would you say to someone that is struggling with something like forgiveness?
I don't have a problem forgiving somebody.
Sure.
I have no problem forgiving somebody, because I still believe you can't hate somebody unless you loved them. Those are two opposites. You can dislike somebody that you don't know, but you really can't hate them, I don't feel, unless there was a love there to begin with. I don't have a problem forgiving people. I never did.
Yeah.
I can break somebody's legs, and 10 minutes later be their friend. That's
Let's not test it. It's just a statement.
It's
Yeah.
a statement, But anyway, you see what I'm saying? Or somebody can beat me in the head. I could be friends with them 10 minutes later. I'm good. I say what I got to say, and I'm done. I'm not going to hold a grudge, really. But as you said, you don't know what I did, and inside me, I can't forgive myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we opened up a lot of things, but have I? I don't know if I got there yet.
Yes. Thanks.
But I'm working at it.
He's
Yeah,
working
I'm
on it.
working at it.
He's working on it. Absolutely.
I'm trying to do my best, and I'm trying to work at it.
It's awesome. Well, I think the key there is that God's still working.
Yeah.
He's still working on us too. We've not arrived. He's not finished. Thank God he's not done. We are this masterpiece that he's still working on. And I know, Becky, you got to give a sermon about masterpiece while y'all were there in Arkansas. God is still working on us as individual masterpieces, and he's still working on you, Merle. Chelsea, he's working on you. Marlette, he's working in you. And I just want to say thank you to this entire group that this morning was real and raw and honest and shared with us. Can y'all give the three of them? And then Carissa and Heather a hand.
Y'all did so great. That was so much more interesting than what I was going to preach about today. It was so much, that was so much better. Great job. Thanks for being open and honest and willing to do this, because, you know, the majority of people are like, I'll do a lot of things at church if you just don't make me get up there and talk in front of everybody.
Yeah.
We won't make you get up here and talk in front of everybody. So thank you guys for doing that, though. That was wonderful. I want to take a moment and before we go and give you a chance to pray and give people a chance to pray for you. So I'm going to invite these folks and those that spoke to come across the front. I'm going to invite our elders to come and prayer team to come here. And in just a moment, I'm going to give you opportunity to have somebody pray for you. Maybe you're going through something. Maybe there's something you can identify with what one of these folks have said. And you just need somebody to agree with you in prayer. Maybe it's something completely different than what any of them said, but we want to give you an opportunity to have somebody pray with you. Would you bow your heads with me across this place today? Before I invite you to come forward and before I invite you to share and to be prayed for and with somebody, I want to ask you this. If you're in this room today and you're not right with God, we want to take a moment and make the most important thing right now. The most important thing is what Jesus came to seek and save, that which is lost. So heads are bowed and eyes are closed and no one's looking around or anything. It's just me. If you're here today and you feel like there's things that are just not right in your life between you and God, if you would like to get things right with the Lord, I just want to ask you to slip up your hand right where you're at today. Say, that's me. I want to make sure things are right between me and God. And I'm not going to embarrass you in any way. I just want to pray for you right where you sit today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. 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 Anybody else? Say, I just feel like there's things in my life that may not be right between me and God. I want to get those right today. Thank you. Thank you. For the benefit of those that raise their hand today and not single anybody out, would you just across this place today, would you say this prayer after me? Say, Jesus, I'm sorry for all of the wrong things that I've done. God, I need you to come into my life to clean me up. God, I thank you for hearing my prayer and for answering it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen. If you'd like for somebody to